Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're taking on a concept that's basically obsessed humanity since the dawn of time. We're going to strip away all the science fiction, the ancient myths, and we're looking at the cold, hard facts of actually curing death. Right, we're talking about the immortality paradox. What actually happens when the world's tech elite decide to stop just building software and start funding the biological and digital science to live forever. Let's get right into it. Seriously, think about it for a second. What if death just became optional? It's a massive, totally reality-bending question. In this explainer, we're dropping right into a cascading thought experiment. We're going to start by zooming way, way in, down to our microscopic cells, to see exactly how modern science is planning to cheat death. And then, we're pulling all the way back to the cosmic planetary scale to look at the real consequences of actually pulling this off. Because, as you'll see, curing the human condition might just come with a really terrifying catch. So, let's zoom in. Section 1. Engineering biological immortality. How science plans to fix the body. So, tech billionaires are pouring absolute fortunes into this right now. They're basically treating aging as a software error that we can just patch. The idea is, if you can understand the biological process, you can influence it or maybe even stop it entirely. Now, there are two main paths scientists are taking to extend life. First up is biological rejuvenation. This is all about repairing DNA and boosting an enzyme called telomerase. You can think of telomerase kind of like those little plastic protective caps on the ends of your shoelaces, but for your DNA. When they wear down, our cells stop dividing. It's a hard boundary scientists call the Hayflick limit. But get this, by boosting telomerase, scientists actually extended the lifespans of lab mice by 50%. We're also looking closely at nature for clues. Take the immortal jellyfish, for example. It can literally revert its cells back to a juvenile state when it gets stressed. Or planarian flatworms that can regenerate their entire bodies from just a tiny single fragment. Crazy, right? Then you've got the artificial organs route. This is kind of the ship of Theseus approach. If an organ fails, you just print a brand new one. Researchers are already out there developing 3D bioprinting for tissue, cartilage, and even mini livers. But here's the thing. Even if we completely perfect these biological and mechanical repairs, we are still fundamentally trapped inside these physical, fragile bodies.
Which brings us to Section 2, the digital consciousness illusion. Can you live on in the machine?
So, if keeping this squishy physical body alive is just too difficult, could we abandon our biology entirely for silicon? This brings us to a concept called whole brain emulation. It's this theoretical process of mapping the brain's exact structure, literally every single neural connection, which is known as your connectome, and then creating a digital emulation of your cognition. Futurists love to call this substrate independence. It's basically the idea that your identity is just a complex pattern of information processing, not the biological wetware actually doing the processing. But we need to pause here because there is a massive, absolutely critical difference between a functional digital extension of your personality and a true transfer of your consciousness. Let's look at where the tech actually stands today.
You might be surprised to hear that modern AI can already copy an astonishing amount of your identity. Researchers use what they call mind files. These are massive archives of your emails, chat histories, professional decisions, audio recordings, the whole shebang. Using that data, AI can clone your voice with creepy accuracy, right down to your authentic breathing sounds. It can mimic your personal writing style, the rhythm of how you tell a joke, and even your exact decision cascades, like if A happens, you usually do B. So yes, you can absolutely leave behind a functional digital avatar that keeps making business decisions or even chats with your grandchildren. It acts like you, it sounds exactly like you, but is that really you?
The crucial point here is captured perfectly in a quote from the Carbon Copies Foundation. They state that a brain emulation must not result in a philosophical zombie. So what does that actually mean? Well, it ties directly into something scientists call the ELIZA effect. That's our deeply human, hardwired tendency to project consciousness and agency onto machines. An AI might perfectly mimic your jokes and your memories, but it has no inner life. It doesn't have a subjective I feeling. It doesn't actually experience time or love or fear. It's just a set of behaviors driven by data. So as of right now, uploading your soul, yeah, that remains pure fiction. But hey, let's play along. Let's say we do solve it. Let's say we completely crack biological immortality and nobody ever has to die again. What happens next? Section 3. The overpopulation crisis. Breaking the Earth. This is exactly where our sci-fi dream takes a pretty dark turn. Because if we cure death, we mathematically and ecologically break our planet. Look at the projections. By the year 2050, the global human population is expected to hit 11.5 billion. Now, right now, global fertility rates are actually dropping in a lot of places. Environmentalists are hoping this might create what's called a depopulation dividend, basically a slight easing of pressure that might give the Earth a little bit of a chance to heal. But if we introduce immortality into the mix, that dividend is completely instantly erased. Nobody is leaving to make room for the newly born. We would violently push past the Earth's carrying capacity, leading to just unstoppable consumption. To put that into perspective with some hard data, the average human today already consumes 1.5 times our planet's sustainable yield. We have literally been in a state of ecological overshoot every single year since 1970. We're using up more food, more water, and more energy than the Earth can possibly regenerate. Now, take that number and imagine an ever-expanding, basically infinite number of immortal humans who never leave the planet and who are just continuously consuming. The resulting greenhouse gas emissions, water scarcity, and pollution, it would be catastrophic. And the collateral damage we're already seeing is staggering. The data shows a massive 68% decrease in global wildlife populations since 1970. We're currently losing 10 million hectares of forest every single year just to keep up with current human demand for housing and agriculture. Extending human life indefinitely directly correlates to massive habitat destruction. Think about it. Infinite humans basically means the total irreversible collapse of global biodiversity. So, faced with all this brutal ecological math, how do the tech optimists respond? Well, they look up to the stars. Section 4, is space the answer? The sci-fi safety valve. Proponents of immortality often argue that if we overpopulate the Earth, it's fine. We just need to become a multiplanetary species. Space colonization, they say, is going to act as our infinite safety valve to absorb all these immortal billions. But there is a massive, gaping hole between the romantic dream of limitless space expansion and the cold, harsh reality. The dream says, oh, we'll just ship all the excess people off-world. The reality, as brilliant minds like Carl Sagan pointed out years ago, it is physically and economically impractical to ship billions of people anywhere. NASA has even noted that our early space colonies wouldn't even be on planets. They'd have to be in orbiting stations just to simulate gravity. Then there's the dream of terraforming Mars. The reality is that this requires absolutely unimaginable energy inputs, completely closed ecological life support systems, and somehow dealing with extreme lethal radiation. Limitless expansion sounds amazing in movies until you realize it diverts critical, urgent resources away from fixing the very real problems we have right here on Earth, right now. And let's talk about the raw economics for a second. $1,400. That is the current cost of launching just one single kilogram into low Earth orbit using a SpaceX Falcon Heavy. Shipping our excess, immortal population off into the cosmos to solve an ecological crisis isn't just a logistical nightmare. It is an absolute economic impossibility. We literally cannot launch our way out of overpopulation.
Section 5. The immortality paradox. Cheating death is an existential threat.
So our cascading thought experiment really brings us full circle here. We started out looking at the incredible scientific triumphs of boosting telomeres, 3D printing organs, and creating these digital mind files, technologies that are pushing the absolute boundaries of what it even means to be human. But when we follow that logic all the way to its end, we arrive at a terrifying ecological nightmare. By refusing to die, we strip the planet of its resources, wipe out its biodiversity, and effectively trap ourselves on an overcrowded, dying Earth. Because as we've seen, space is a pretty impossible escape hatch. So I'm going to leave you with this to think about. If living forever ultimately destroys the world that sustains us, is immortality really a cure, or is it just a new disease? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning the impossible.